Today I'm going to show you step by step how to organize your business and get ready for your first real estate deal. Hello friends, I'm Jimmy Frank Rogers with LearnPrivateLending.com, where we help you safely maximize the return on your money by making loans on real estate. If you're new to our channel, please hit the subscribe button below, and as always, the links to everything that we talk about will be available in the description down below. Let's get started. So starting your lending business requires really about 3 different areas that we're going to have to take some action in. First is we need to establish our legal entity that we're going to be making the loans out of. Second is we need to be very organized in all of our record keeping. We really are going to have to take care of making sure that we're tracking all of our income and expenses, and there's a lot of legal ramifications to that. Also, some very expensive mistakes we can make if we're not careful with that. And then finally, we need to actually open some accounts. So let's jump right into it. So first things first, starting our legal entity. You need to have a CPA and an attorney, and you need to ask them, what are the source of your funds? This is extremely important because you can make one of the biggest mistakes you can make, financially speaking, is by not having your entity set up correctly. For instance, if you have a tax qualified account is the source of your funds. So this would be something like a IRA, a 401k, something like that, where there's some kind of penalty if you access the funds before age 59 and a half. You're probably going to have to set up a self-directed IRA. And this is really important that whenever you have a self-directed IRA, your record keeping has to be absolutely spot on. How you pay for things, how you receive income, there's very specific rules that you have to follow. Otherwise, the government will treat your entire amount that is in that self-directed IRA as a distribution, which means not only is that entire amount going to hit your income tax statement for this year, you're also going to have to pay a 10% penalty on top of that, which is super expensive. So definitely 100% find your CPA, find your real estate attorney, talk to them. As far as the actual entity that you're setting up, like for me, my funds were in a taxable account. This was money that I'd already paid taxes on. It was just extra cash setting aside. And so I had a couple of choices. I could have set up a DBA, which stands for doing business as. This is probably the simplest form of starting an entity. You just go down to your county clerk's office and pay a small fee. And the only rule is you can't choose a name somebody else is already doing. So I could have ABC Lending doing business, or Jimmy Frank Rogers doing business as DBA, ABC Lending, or whatever I wanted to call it. Another option is you might want to have what's called an S Corp, which is actually what I did. This is where it is a separate legal entity, my lending business, which affords me a little bit of liability protection from all of my other assets that are outside of my lending business. And my S Corp does not pay taxes. All of the income and expenses flow right through to my personal tax return. And I pay normal income tax on it there, since the money that we make off our lending business is what's considered active money. It's earned income. It's not passive income. So an example of passive income would be something like having some rental properties where you don't really have to do anything. The money just comes in. A lot of times you'll be advised to set up some kind of LLC for those. So with it being earned income, I'm going to pay normal income tax on all of this money. Again, I can't stress enough to make sure you talk to your CPA, make sure you talk to your attorney, get some advice as to what type of entity to set up. This is money well spent if you have to get some advice from them. Obviously, any fees they charge to get that entity set up is definitely worth it in the long run. This is not where you want to go cheap. The other thing that you're going to set up is a tax ID number, or an EIN number, which stands for Employer Identification Number. And this is something free to do. You can go onto the IRS website. It's very simple. You click in, you put your information in, and this is just a number that the IRS knows you by, so that you don't have to use your social security number on your paperwork for your business. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything, and it's a great thing to do. This is also very helpful too if later on you scale up your business where you start to have employees of your business. By law, you have to have an EIN number at that point. And so it's just something to get out of the way and go ahead and get done right at the beginning. If you're just trying out lending, you're not sure if you want to do it full time or not, it's okay to start off as possibly a DBA. Don't spend a lot of money getting an S-Corp set up or some other entity like that. You can always transfer it later. It does cost you just a little bit of money to do that, but it's not something that you have to do immediately. So that's an option. So the second thing we talked about was tracking our money and being really organized. There's just one possible software that I personally think you should be using, and that's Quicken. It's something that I've used for a long time. It's very professional. Any business, I think you're crazy if you don't have a very robust software that's keeping track of your income, your expenses, labeling everything correctly, because you're going to have an idea of all the normal metrics that you're doing in a business. Also, you just need to know where your money is. Where's the money coming from, who's paid, who hasn't paid, what's next due, those kind of things like that. So I highly, highly recommend Quicken. It's very, very affordable. If you don't want to use Quicken, I would encourage you to, hopefully you're extremely organized and you've got some other kind of system that you like, but just make sure it's something that you're going to use each and every time and don't take any chances with it. Finally, we're going to get to actually physically opening up some accounts. So we have our legal entity paperwork, whatever that is, whether it's a DBA, an S-Corp, or something else that your CPA or attorneys advised you of. And so we're going to need a bank. I highly recommend finding a very small town bank to do business with. And here's the reason why. Your large banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo and Chase and BBVA, Compass, stuff like that, are nationwide banks. They're not super flexible. They're very rigid. They do things the way they do. And the people working in the locations generally are not the owners. These are, managers and employees. Your small town bank, and I'm talking real small town, generally the people working in the bank and the owner is probably working in the bank. Usually they're going to know you on a first name basis. A big important reason to do this is whenever we charge interest payments to our borrowers, we're going to do it by ACH, which stands for Automatic Clearinghouse. We're not going to wait for them to write a check to us. We're going to automatically set it up to where on a certain date, their bank account is going to be debited for the amount that they owe us. This is just a non-negotiable thing. And so usually with a smaller town bank, this is something they can do for you, that they'll set up for you. Your bigger banks, you might be able to get it done if you have some kind of merchant or business checking account, but a lot of times they charge a lot to do that, and there's a lot of extra work that has to go into that. So I would get on Google Maps, search for a small town bank in your area, do a search for a bank, and call them up and talk to them. See if it's something that sounds really, really friendly. See if they are able to do that automatic ACH for you. Obviously, we're going to be sending wires and receiving wires. That'll be the other thing that we do. And so they're going to charge a fee for that. Generally, it's $20, $25. It's not a big deal. I wouldn't probably pay much more than that if I had to. And that's what we're going to need the bank for. The other things that we're going to need next is we're going to need some checks. And so that's simple enough. Go online. There's lots of different places to order checks for your account. The last thing is you're going to need either a debit card or a credit card, one or the other, depending on which you prefer. Just for your normal incidental expenses. If you have to buy some software, if you have to buy a computer, if you keep track of your mileage, what have you, just your normal business expenses that are associated with your business, you want to have some kind of debit or credit card just out of convenience for them. So you're not having to pay in cash or write checks for everything, which takes forever. Finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about is a little bonus to you. This is optional. You don't have to do it, but I would recommend getting a UPS mailbox. For really one reason is it's nice to have the privacy. So I can use that UPS mailbox as my physical location for my business. This is pretty nice because on all the paperwork that we do, especially once you start doing deals, a lot of that information is public information, and so it doesn't have my home address on it, which is kind of nice for people not to know exactly where I live. And so by using that UPS mailbox, they can receive packages for me. Obviously, they use that address, and so I don't have to use my home address. And I find it to be very helpful and worth the few $100s that I spend every year for that. I hope you got some value out of this video. Love for you to hit the like button and definitely comment below if there is anything that you would like to see me do in the future or any questions that you have about this video, and I'll try to respond as soon as possible. So hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.